Hello, welcome to week 4, Personal Financial Management, summer 2013. This week we're going to focus on acquiring a source of transportation. Also maybe buying a car, but since there's so many different types of vehicles or types of transportation, I thought we'd take a little different view. There's really two views of transportation. The first one is it's a basic. You get from point A to point B. That's the purpose of the vehicle or the method of transportation. Okay. The next one is where it becomes personal comfort and social status. Because how you look at these is going to drive what you get. Okay? If it's very basic, you want to go from A to B, that's one thing. But if you want comfort, if you want to listen to music at a certain thing, you like certain luxuries, certain things in your vehicle, or you feel they define you socially. And we can't forget that because vehicles do define us in a social way depending on what we drive. But in reality, we put everything else aside, it's a function of what we can afford as individuals. It becomes a cost-benefit analysis. So if you look here, I've got two pictures of cars. The first one is a Jeep, and this is very partial to me because I drove one of these over 200,000 miles, and it got me from point A to B fairly well. And about a year and a half ago, I had to get a new car because when I was driving down the 390, this wouldn't go much over 40 miles an hour, and it was getting to be a little pain. But it was my basic transportation. I wasn't concerned about much. However, no, this is not what I bought. It is a nice car, but sometimes this defines who we are, and it's a social status. And one of the things about it is this is where you have to do some serious thinking within your budget and what you're trying to do. Sure, you could spend more on a car, but when you start looking at other things and you start looking at that emergency fund, you start looking at retirement, you may come up with a different view. Next thing I want to talk about, a car is not an investment. No way. An investment is something that is going to increase in value for you, that's going to deliver a return. A car is not an investment. It is an expense. Okay? It is a cost to you. It's in your budget. It takes cash out. It doesn't return cash. So don't let anybody tell you it's a big investment. No, it's not an investment. It's a cost. You're arranging, when you buy a car or lease a car, what you're doing is you're arranging your transportation for the next 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. Okay? A car depreciates in value. That means it's less for every mile you put on it, every day you own it and wear it out. A new car depreciates rapidly. If you buy a car, okay, the minute you drive it off that lot, brand new car, it's worth 15 to 20% less. Okay, and that's an upfront cost. So you got to take that into account. When we look at lease versus buy decisions, it's a budget decision, not an investment decision. So when you're coming to budget, we're looking at what can we acquire that meets our needs at the lowest possible cost. Before we get along into the detail, there's a lot of questions that come up when you're acquiring transportation. So I'm going to try to organize these in a logical way for you. But I want to start with what's the total cost of the vehicle. The first thing is I want you to instead of cost, cash flow. That's cash out of pocket. What we want to do is take a look over time, and when you're doing your analysis, what's the first year cost? What's it going to cost me in years 2 to 5? What's a 5-year cost? And then we need to evaluate this in the context of our budget. Now, we're going to look at the cash outflows that are associated with our vehicle. First is, and this doesn't matter whether you lease it or buy it, you're going to have a down payment. May put something down. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. We'll talk about that. But then you're going to have your monthly payment. There we go. You're going to have that. That's the payment that you're going to pay. Again, it's a lease payment or a finance payment. You're going to have, last week we looked at insurance. Okay, so as you saw, there's a lot of different prices. So you're going to find insurance payments. Then, what is the fuel? How much fuel are you going to use? So you're going to have to deal with how much is used in a year, and then what is the unit cost? Okay, so you're going to have to figure out how much miles and how much fuel you're going to use. What's the unit cost to determine your fuel? And as we all know, the price of gas is too high. We then have maintenance. Maintenance of a vehicle is your regular ongoing. That's changing the oil, going to the car wash, that type of thing. And then I'll say what we'll call is sort of a cyclical maintenance. These are things that are exposed to normal wear and tear, and if you own a car, you have to do it on a fairly regular basis. And the first thing is brakes. Brakes need to be replaced. They will last anywhere from 25,000 to 40,000 miles, depending on how you drive, how you brake. Tires, again, are based on the quality of the tire, and they can last anywhere from 20 to 50,000 miles. But these are higher priced items. You don't have it every month, but you need to anticipate it in your budget. So what we want to look at now is, let's take a look at how this works. Open the worksheet called Auto PFM under Module 4. You'll be able to use this as a tool. And the first thing I'd like you to do is go to the worksheet called Cash Flow. So generally, when you're budgeting, you need to get an idea of what your costs are going to be so that you can manage and plan for that, as well as make sure you achieve your financial objectives. So I put this together, and I'm going through it now so that you keep this in mind as we move through the rest of the program on acquisition transportation. So let me just explain how this is organized. You have the columns here called monthly, year 1, year 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then your total 5-year cost. Okay, and I've set up vehicle 1, vehicle 2, you can put them in. Anything that says input has a like purple here, and that means you should put a number in there. So you need to put something in those. The one that is flesh or peach colored, those are automatically computed, so you don't want to touch them. So let's see how this works. First thing, let's assume I'm going to drive 1,000 miles a month. That 1,000 miles a month is 12,000 for the year, and over 5 years I will drive 60,000 miles. Now, I need to know how much my fuel cost is, but before I can do that, I have to look up what my miles per gallon MPG is, and let's just say it's 25. So at that, I'm going to use about 40 gallons a month, 480 gallons a year, or 2,400 gallons over a 5-year period. What's the price per gallon? Let's just say $3.65. Okay, and it holds its firm throughout that. Just gives us a basic comparison. Total fuel cost was $146 a month, $1,752 a year, $8,760. Now, everybody went and got insurance costs. Okay, right? So now you get your insurance costs. You know how to do that. Put that in. Routine maintenance, that your oil changes, your car washes. Let's just put in $30 a month. Cyclical maintenance, I'm just going to assume the way I drive that once I get into year 2, I'm going to need to do brakes, I'm going to need to do tires, and I'm going to do, every other year do one or the other. And it doesn't matter, it's a number, okay? But it's only going to come out in future years. I don't need to spend that now. I just need to think about that when I get into maybe I use my emergency fund for it. But I put it in. It doesn't really matter. Now let's take my car payment or lease. It doesn't matter. Whatever I'm paying for it. Let's say it's $300. So what we can see is that my monthly cost of transportation is $643. That's not an investment because that's money going out. So if I look over a 5-year period, this vehicle is going to cost me a little more than just about $41,000. But note that only 44% of the cost of running a vehicle is the monthly payment. And the mistake that a lot of people make is they don't understand these other costs. You're getting a handle on that. So what you can then do is use this to compare different vehicles. Take a look here. This is the same basic scenario. The only difference is 30 miles per gallon. So as you can see, there's a $1,100 difference, or on a monthly basis, almost $35 a month. Let's say you do a better job shopping for insurance and you drop that down to $1,500 with that vehicle. Now we're talking real differences between $643 a month and $577 a month. So this is a worksheet. What I'd like you to do now is to stop, just play with some numbers so you get an idea of how it works before we move along. Okay? Now that we sort of got this acquisition of transportation into a financial model and we're looking at costs, we can now move on to the actual process of buying a car. First thing you want to ask, what are your needs? Then, what are your wants? Okay, so there's needs and wants, and when we're buying a car, we really have to distinguish between them. And then doing some research online, reading the papers and magazines and all sorts of different things. What are some of the vehicles that meet my needs? And this you can do research on. Then you can look at what are the total costs of those cars. Okay? Then you ask yourself, do I buy or I lease? And very importantly, how does it fit within my budget? And within that, there's trade-offs. I know there's everything we'd like to do, but we can't do everything. So there's trade-offs. Some things we might give up, we might want, we can't give up. But it starts with research, both online research and seeing cars, touching cars, taking test drives are all part of the research process. So the first thing that you really need to look at when buying a car, because it's going to help you make the lease buy decision, it's going to help you in identifying the best vehicle for you. And it's a chart. How many miles will you drive the car? If you drive to work, that's maybe 10 to 15 miles per day plus local trips. That's about 10 to 12,000 miles per year. That's about what the average person drives. But if you drive to work 15 to 30 miles, you're going to need 15 to 18,000 miles a year. If you drive to work 10 to 15 miles per day and your girlfriend, boyfriend lives 100 miles away, you're going to drive about 20 to 25. So, based on what you learned in the first project, how many miles a year might you drive? Okay? So I want you to think about that now and pause and then write down how many miles you think you can drive or need to drive in that first year. Will it be any different in year 5? So that's the first thing, is how many miles will you drive? What will you use it for? If you're simply going to use it, you're going to take public transportation and you're going to use it just for running around, but you need to identify that. So the first thing you want to do is how many miles a year. Then you need to identify such things as, will I be driving primarily by myself? Or will I have other people with me? Okay? Or how many people do I think would drive with me? Now just think about this, because if you're just going to drive yourself and an occasional passenger, you could get by with a smaller car. But if you always drive with 3, 4, 5, 6 people, you're going to need something bigger. So you sort of got to identify that. There's not a right or wrong answer with any of this, but it's what you need and what meets your needs. Will you need room for transporting stuff? What do I mean by stuff? Well, skis, golf clubs, tools, pets, pet containers. What do you need? Okay? Because that's going to help you decide what to do. An important question. The other is, will I need to tow anything? Do I have snowmobiles? Do I have jet skis? A boat? A trailer? So am I going to need to tow anything? Because what you may need to tow may dictate what you need to buy. Will you be driving under any adverse conditions. I mean, do you have a cottage that's the end of a 1 mile road? Are you going to be doing off-road? Are you going to be driving in heavy snow up mountains? And then so you need to know how you're going to drive. And then you got to sort of get around your mind. Do I want to have the lowest cost, reliable transportation possible? Notice the emphasis I made on the word reliable. Okay? I don't think any of us want a car that we have to constantly be working on. Or do we want to add more comfort features? And remember, this is, as I said, this is not right or wrong. This is what's right for you. But you need to talk about these things with someone else or in your mind and write them down so that when you go to look for a car, you find one that meets those needs. Okay? Or does the car define me? Comfort and define are very different. Some of the ones, well, leather heated seats, upgraded sound system. Well, you have to have a great sound system. Moonroof, oh, I've had a couple of them. You gotta have one of them moonroofs. Tinted windows on a bright sunny day, just keeps the sun out, makes it cool. Upgraded tires. I gotta have the right tires, the right rims. I don't want these standard ones. Heated mirrors. Oh my God, have you ever tried to get going in the morning and you don't have the heated mirrors? A navigation system. I'm not good with directions. I need this navigation system. Fancy wheels. I guess I redundant that. I meant the rims. Tires, rims, different. Do I need different performance options? Do I need speed control? Do I need theft control? What do I need? So, you see, I'm not paying attention. One, each of these has a cost, and you have to put things together. Oftentimes, this is about comparing vehicles. So what I suggest, some cars will meet your needs the same as others, but the cash flows may be totally different. That's why you have to do the analysis. What will be different, even though the cars may meet your needs, is the mileage that's offered, the reliability, insurance. You saw some very interesting quotes there in that assignment, and I think you're going to find the same thing there. Payments, special deals. So you need to take a look. What I suggest is before you do anything more is narrow it down to 3 cars or so. You can do more, but do 3. Then do your analysis up front. Know your facts before you actually go out. What we're going to look at now is major car types. And I think it's important when we're talking to have a sense of when you're looking at cars, where do you look, what do you look for? The first car type, and it's probably one of the most common ones, is a sedan. It's a 4-door car. We have a coupe, which is a 2-door car, and they come in various price points, which oftentimes correspond to size. So in this case, I have a Chevy Focus, and that's going to price between Chevy Sonic, and it's going to 15 to 20. Okay, $1,000 is what the cost is. It can be done in a 2-door or a 4-door coupe, but it's a subcompact. Okay, it's a good car, but it's in that price range. We could add on a Ford Focus, which is the one right here, and that's in the $20,000 to $25,000 range. And the last one that I show here is your Honda Accord, and that can run $25,000 to $30,000. You probably can get that cheaper today, but that's the we'll talk about that. This is major car types. So you really got a subcompact, you got a compact, and then you have a full size sedan. And then the last one is a Buick, and that's a Buick LaCrosse, a much bigger car. That's a full size, more luxury car. So we got basically 4 different sizes of cars, 4 different price ranges. Okay, they're all, you can get these new or used. So that's this car type. We then have what we'll call sport utility vehicles. And these SUVs can be 4-wheel drive, all-wheel drive, 2-wheel drive. 4-wheel drive means that you select which wheel to put you engage it. So it's a regular 2-wheel. When you engage it, it becomes 4 wheels. All 4 wheels have power going. All-wheel drive means that power is going to every wheel all of the time. And then there's 2-wheel drive that there's only one axle, and it is doing that. So you sort of have to say, well, how am I going to use it? Okay. And then there is a mix here, crossovers. These are ones that look a little bit like a car, but yet they're a little bit like an SUV. So they're a crossover. You need to determine, what do you really need? Are you going to do really rough off-road use? Or do you want luxury driving? Okay. And I think if you look, we got your typical, right here, we got your Jeeps. They're off-roads. They're a sport car, but you can do different things in different conditions. And then we can see here that this is almost more like a car. In fact, it doesn't look anything like it, and you most likely wouldn't take a car like that really off-road. But this, with 4-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, will help you, especially in Western New York, where we have some tough winters at times, and it'll help you get through the snow. Okay? So we got sedans and coupes, we got sports utility vehicles, then we move into hybrids and electrics. And on hybrids, what that means essentially is it runs by both electric and gas. Okay? There's an electronic drive system, and it has related computerized control. But it still has has specialized batteries, but it also still has a gas engine. So a hybrid runs on electric and it runs on gas, depending on the speed that you're doing it. And sometimes what this can end up being is a very efficient car, and they come in many sizes and prices, but they're in the range of 40 to 50 miles per gallon. So it's a lot more efficient to run a hybrid car, the electric and gas. It's got a gas motor and an electric drive system. But prices vary, and they're generally more expensive, 20% or more compared to a normal car. So if you're doing your budget, you take the worksheet that you and I talked about just a little while ago, and you try to work that, you'll find that that is good. And there's a picture of the Prius, which is the most common hybrid. We then have electric. And electric cars have no gas engine. They use no gas. They run in extremely low cost fuel. You literally plug them in. But there's speed and distance constraints. You can only go so far on a charge, then you got to plug in. The speed, it has good speed, good pickup, but it can't go as fast as a gas car. But where you recharge, okay? So if you're just coming to and from work and home, maybe you can plug them in. If you're driving 10 miles to work and back, that's not a problem, but you need the ability to recharge. There's a lot of new technology in this, and they're higher priced. They're clearly higher priced. And again, is it really going to, you got to run the numbers and say, is this really worthwhile? And again, the answer in this one, probably not, but it may define you as a person. Next thing we talk about, new versus used. Should you buy a new car or a used car? The answer is maybe. Let's take advantage of, what are the advantages of a new? Pricing is easier to understand. There's tools that we can use to find out pricing and know what we're paying. Leasing is available. Okay, leasing is not generally available on used cars, so you can only lease a new one. Okay, rates. If you're going to borrow money to buy a car, rates are lower and terms are longer on new cars, which means your monthly payment can be lower. Everything is new. It smells new. It acts new. It's got, everything is pretty and clean. Nothing is worn out. Less risk of things breaking in a new car. It comes with a warranty. We'll talk about that in a moment. And you know the history of the car. It was manufactured in place A, and it got to the dealer, and that's it. Okay. A disadvantage of new, and there are some, The first one is the first year depreciation is steep. That car becomes worth less than you paid for it the minute you drive it off the lot. And it may be, and I use the word may be, relatively more costly, but you have to run the numbers. There's some clear advantages to a new car, especially leasing, and when you see what the purpose of leasing is, this probably makes sense to you. You could probably lease a new car at a lesser monthly cost than you could buy a used car. Okay? You'll see how this develops here as we go along. So, what's the advantage of used? One is if you have there's program cars, which are those that have been in rental pools and fleets, relatively low mileage. You know, in that 15 to 25,000 miles. This is rental cars. They're low mileage, and they also continue the warranty program. You have single owners who leased a car for 3 years. They're turning it back in. There's about 36,000 miles on it. Fairly, the main depreciation is out of the way, so you could get that. And then we have real used cars. And this is a little bit different, but in these three, you can always get more car and features for your money. Now that becomes a matter of definition because we don't always have the money available, and what we have to look at is our financing, okay, our monthly payment. If we had money to go out and buy a car and we didn't have any money concerns, we wouldn't need to do this. But advantages, sometimes you can get more car and features for the money, but you're also picking up more risks. So you've got that first year depreciation. There's also more room to negotiate price. Okay, that you can look at things a little differently there. Disadvantage of used, leasing is not always available, and leasing is what gets you the monthly payment that works for the budget, to be honest with you. Interest rates, if you go to borrow, interest rates are higher on used cars. You can use a Carfax to get information on the car, but you need to be aware that within that you're going to find things. Okay, that could be a fire damage, it was in an accident, it was in a flood. So you could have those things, and that's why you run Carfax. Carfax can take care of that disadvantage. But the other thing you have is normal wear and tear. So if tires last 40,000 miles and you have a car that has 20,000 on them, you're going to need to replace the tires sooner than if it were a new car. It does wear. The seats wear, they get dirtier. It's just part of that. The other thing you have is it's a different warranty, okay? And we'll look at what a warranty is shortly. But there's advantages and there's disadvantage, okay? When you look at a used car, it is a matter of it is worn. You have to understand what's the condition of it, and is there anything you should know about? Because there could be a lot more risk associated with a used car than a new car. The next thing that we're going to look at is pricing terms and nuances. What we're going to start with is what's called the sticker price and or manufacturer suggested retail price, MSRP. And that's the retail price of the vehicle as recommended by the manufacturer, MSRP. Okay, that is in the car window, and it's cited in advertising. Any of the advertising you're going to look at, you're going to see this. Okay, it's a starting point. You don't want to pay that. That's probably giving your upper limit. Okay, now here's a sample right now of what a sticker looks like, and a few things to point out here is it does list out what the MPG is. In the city it's 15, highway it's 19, and it tells you what the vehicle is. It gives you what's called a VIN number, and cars are identified by a vehicle identification number, VIN number. This is embedded in the car, and it tells you what type it is, the wheelbase, the engine, colors, tells you what the options that are already on the car, and then it shows here, okay, this is the manufacturer's suggested list price for the standard vehicle. Then they've added on different packages here. So when you look, they've added on a V8 engine to this, okay, and that's costing you $1,050. They've added on an electronic 4-speed automatic overdrive transmission, $1,000. They added on a sports group. If you look, here you go, cab steps, so you can get up in it, power driver's seat. But again, they've added things on. Then they took a discount of air conditioning, and there's the vehicle and options, $30,000. Destination and delivery. There's always a charge for delivering the car. So this vehicle right here is $31,065, and they're giving you $805. They're throwing in air conditioning. Yeah, they're not throwing it in. So this vehicle MSRP is $30,260. This is the starting point. You go to the car dealer at night or when nobody's there, and you can read these to see what's in them. You can do the same thing online, but it's sort of you can have fun going and doing it. So everything starts with MSR. The next pricing term we're going to talk about is what's called invoice price or dealer invoice. And manufacturers ship cars to dealers with invoices attached. Okay? And this is the rough amount they pay for the car. They have an invoice on it so that when the auto dealer goes to finance that car, and the auto dealers have to finance that car while it's on the lot. So they have an invoice, and that invoice is how the financing happens from the dealer's perspective. And this is the rough amount they pay for the car. And we have seen people offering $500 over discount over a dealer invoice, $100 over dealer invoice, $100 below, a lot of different things. But you need to know that it's the rough price, it's not the actual price. It's not the actual price for a couple of reasons. Okay? The first thing is it's almost impossible to understand. They have all different codes which you or I really can't read. And it'll make it clear that we're looking at a dealer's invoice and here's the price, but there's all sorts of other things on it that we don't understand. But what do you need to know? You need to know that sometimes dealers have to pay an additional fee to the manufacturer. This could be a marketing fee, a support fee. So sometimes they actually are paying more, but not as frequently as they're paying less. What happens is there's something called dealer cash, and some dealers will tell you about it and others won't. And dealer cash is unadvertised money, meaning the manufacturers are not offering it, but the manufacturer will give the dealer an extra amount to sell a car that isn't shown on the invoice. It's called dealer cash. And this is again an attempt by the manufacturer to sell the cars. And there's more dealer cash around cars that may have a higher inventory, that there may be a lot of them left, may not be selling as well, so they have to do something to move them. If a car is in short supply, you're going to find that there is no dealer cash. So this is unadvertised money. Okay, that might be available for you. There's a holdback. Okay, and that's a percent that the manufacturer holds back and pays when the car is sold. So the invoice might be $15,000, but there could be a holdback. The other thing then is dealers make money on financing, and we're going to talk about that when we talk about financing a car. But you know, this is a point, okay, a simple point of where we are. Okay, but you need to know the invoice, what it is, what does it mean? What is the market price then? How do I know what to pay? Okay, we can't just look at the advertisement in the paper or a website to find a price. They can serve as a basis, if you will, for analyzing your choices. When you see advertisement in websites, you're going to see the print so tiny that you can barely read it, and so many confusing things. But there is a basis for helping us get our hands around different things, being a source of information. What I think is probably the best is a site called Edmonds True Market Value. And there's actually attached an article from this week's Wall Street Journal. You might have seen it. And it talks about how the nature of buying cars has changed primarily due to the internet and companies like Edmund and what they do. And if you look, these are this we're going to look at it in a moment, but they look at the market. These analysts look at the market. They examine what cars have sold for using various sources. They consider the popularity of the car, and then they set a true market value. And that's sort of the average amount that others in your area are paying for the car. And it's an average. Okay? Now that means some people are going to pay more, some people are going to pay less. But by using this true market value, you're going to be able to get a sense of where your price is. And this is also going to help bring in some of this dealer reserve, and it is also going to help us understand the pricing model so that when we do go to the dealer, we're going to be prepared. Okay? And that's a very important thing when going to the dealer. Let's take a look at this Edmonds True Market Value. I'm now on the Edmonds website, www.edmonds.com. This is the home page, and as you can see, I have an account. You can set it up free. It'll keep track of things for you and will enable you to save cars that you've looked at and also to be able to download some information. So this is the home page. It has new cars, and it will tell us that there's calculators, car finder, comparison cars, finding dealers, getting monthly payments, incentive and rebates, search inventory, true cost to own. Then they go into used cars, inventory around, reviews of cars, tips and advice, what's hot. So what I've done is I put my zip code, 14450, and what I am going to look for is a sedan. So I'm going to click on sedan, and it's going to come up here, and it's going to let me browse either by manufacturer or it's going to let me browse by price. So if I'm looking within a certain price range, I can click. If I'm looking for all-wheel drive, I can click. What is it that I'm looking for? So I can do it by feature or I can do it by product. So I'm interested in something that's between $15,000 and $25,000 because that's my price range. So if I want to know what's in that range, I can bring it up. I clicked on that, and it lets me see that here's my price, here's the makes, the types, and the features. Well, let's see what a Chevy has available for us. So I'm going to click on that. They have a Chevy Cruze, Malibu. Let's start with the Malibu sedan. Okay, so I'm going to pick the Chevy Malibu, and I want the 2013, so I'm going to click on that. And it's going to come up with what do I want. So I'm going to have to go to the manufacturer's website to define whether I want the LS edition, the LT, the 2WD, the Econo 4-drive, 4-door, all different features. Okay, so let's just keep it that I want to buy this one right here. So the LT edition 4-door car. So I click on that. Okay, now it's going to let me pick colors in options, and let's just say I want to get the electronics and entertainment. The color doesn't matter. I think a nice color, I like that color, and then the interior a little bit like that. There's no comment. Do I want anything else? So it's going to let me put on these different mechanical options that it's up to me. Now, sometimes cars come with these packages, and I click the electronics and entertainment, which means I'm going to get Pioneer Premium 9-speaker system, 120-volt outlets, rear vision camera. I think that's pretty cool. Auto dimming inside, rear view mirrors, lighting, netting, just something. So I'm going to buy that. Okay. I'm not going to pick any of these others, but you can find out what they are and make a decision. Do you want to buy floor mats? Well, they're going to be $100. Well, maybe you can go to Target and get them cheaper. So now let's just see what happens when we get true market value. What we're seeing right here is that MSRP is $26,875. The dealer invoice is about $25,600. True market value, there's not much marked down here, but what we see is there's an incentive and rebates. So that car, when we put in the incentives and rebates, should be about $24,215. So we're looking at an MSRP here of $26,875 less $24,000. So we're really looking, about that $2,600 off. Okay, so I think you'll see that that gives you an idea. Now we can go back to almost any car. If we go back to Chevy, and let's say that we want to get a, let's click on car. Say that I want to get, how about a Camaro Coupe? That was one of my first cars. I always wanted a Camaro. But let's take a look at that. I want the Chevy Camaro Coupe. Okay. And obviously, that's all in rear wheel drive, but it's going to be a two-car. That's a coupe, as we know. And let's just see what the this LT 2LT is. So then we're going to move forward. Okay, what are my options? I click on that. Well, I got to have this package. Oh my God, I got to have this one. What else do I need? I'm okay with that. Yeah, I'm going to have Inferno Orange Metallic. Yeah, I'm going to do that. I need the exhaust, don't I? Got to have automatic. I'm not real good with it. That's already there. Cargo mats, audio system with navigation. I got to have that. Yeah, let's just go get it from here, see how much I've spent. Okay, now, as you can see, the MSRP is $33,475. The invoice is $31,862. The true market value is $32,400 less $1,000 incentive and rebates. Gets me at about $31,000. So what I can see is what room do I have to negotiate, if you will, here. What would be a fair price? And sometimes you don't always know. So let's, I'm going to go back and I'm going to do another one for you right here. And I'm going to go home. And I'm going to do a sedan. In this case, I'm going to do probably 25 to 35. And this time I'm going to go in and I am going to find a Toyota. Let's see. Okay, sometimes you got to play. I'm going to go 15 to 25 because that's what they're basing it on. And I'm still going to do a Toyota. And I want a Toyota Camry sedan. So I click. And I want the 2013. So I'm going to click on that. And I'm going to want the LE. Okay. So as I move forward with the LE, there's not many packages that I can get, but let me just throw in the preferred package. And I don't need to do anything else. And I'm going to get the true market value. And what I can see is total price $23,033, $24,218, and $22. So I can see there's a little bit of room in here. Now, this is where you have to do your homework because we see all different prices. Now, let me just bring over is some dealers tell you that they will give you the price, no hassle, no negotiation, clearance symbol. Dorschel makes that claim in Rochester here, and they're telling you that it's $24,140. Their discount is $23.90, and there's a $500 rebate, or $21,250. If we compare that here, one, they're telling us about a rebate. The $500 isn't here yet, but we could then see that $500 off of that. We could then compare it to $21,250, and see that that is a good purchase price for that car. So now we feel more confident. Now, this is very nice that they've given us this, but not everybody does that. So this gives us a sense of what it is. Now, this is a starting point for us. Used car pricing. Often harder to get around because there's many more variables with the pricing of a used car. It can be the brand of a car, number of miles on the car, the condition of the car, the age of the car, the history of the car. Okay, so we're going to look at it. A Mercedes that has low miles, could be 10 years old, is going to be worth more, relatively speaking, than a Chevy Impala that's 10 years old and has the same mileage. If the condition of the car was it was always parked outside and in like upstate New York and it's rusting, it might be different than a Florida car. Okay, if it was drive by the little old lady who only went to church, it might be 10 years old, but it only has 4,000 miles. That's something different. The history of the car. Has it been in an accident? Okay, has it been in a fire? So there's a little more variables around the used car pricing. The other thing that drives it is the owner's basis in the car, and that's whether you're buying it from a dealer or an owner. They have something in it, and they're looking to get something out of it. So the prices there's a lot more variables to pricing when it comes to a used car. So since there's more variability in the pricing, there's more room for you to negotiate, and then there's a bigger selection at different price points. Okay, but you have to look at all of these very, very carefully. The last thing here I put in is you can use Kelley Blue Book, and that gives you, again, it's a website that will help you get some idea of what prices are. And you could also use Craigslist, because what Craigslist is that's people selling cars one-on-one. So you can start to get a sense for that, of what's going on. We can also use Auto Trader, Cars.com. There's many places that will give us ideas of what used cars are, but they don't. That's a general estimate of the price, but it depends more on the number of miles on the car, condition of the car, age, history, etc. So these three here can all be used as guides. Okay? Now, sometimes when you buy a car, you may have another car that you're trading in. And in this case, if your price of the car is 15, the trade-in is 3, net cost is 12. Price is 16, trade-in of 4, the price is 12. So a dealer could either play with this number or this number. So they're still coming down to 12,000. So you may think you're getting a deal here if he prices it at 15, or a deal here. Okay? Now, what that means is that you should know the price on its own. Okay? You should know what the price is of the car alone so that you can evaluate that trade-in. The dealer would always like you to start with the manufacturer's suggested retail price. And if he does that, he has more room to negotiate the price with you and still make a product. You, on the other hand, should consider making the invoice or below invoice your starting point and working up. Okay? And you got to have that point where you're going to be settled. Now, remember, market changes rapidly. Okay? And it's important to really shop around because it's going to be based on what a dealer's trying to do, what the inventory of that type of car is. So you want to shop along. So, but you need to know the price of the car alone, know what the value of your used car is. Some dealers want to buy your used cars and they would pay you for it. They don't want to sell you necessarily a car, they just want to buy your car because the demand for used cars is greater than new cars. Figure that out. When you're done with this section, hopefully you'll see that a new car might be the answer for you. So you can get an independent value of your car. So you need to know the price of the car alone and the value of your used. You don't want to be in a situation like this that you might be getting the same cost either way because you're not. Somehow they're going to try to make money off of you. Okay? Pricing of vehicles. You can get a fair price on a vehicle. Okay? It's not that bad. It's even gotten easier, but you need to be prepared and do your homework. Let's talk now about warranties. Warranties are agreements to pay if something goes wrong. It's risk protection. Okay? And it's really in 3 different areas. The first is your powertrain, large components. That's your engine, transmission, your axles, your drivetrain. So that's a powertrain warranty. We then have what's called exclusionary coverage, also known as bumper to bumper. And this covers almost everything going wrong with the car except maintenance items. Tires, brakes, mufflers, there's a whole list. Then we should always look at that list and say what's covered, what's not, because each manufacturer is different. Then there's also a warranty called listed component, and that's more expensive, but you specifically identify what is covered and pay a premium for each one of them. This is essentially like you have a risk. Risk is something goes wrong with your car. What is the potential risk? How do you mitigate it? If you buy a new car, there's the manufacturer's warranty. The manufacturer's warranty is issued by the manufacturer, and the manufacturer is behind it. Okay, it's not dealer specific. Let's look at 2 companies and what they offer. If we look at Honda, they have a 3-year, 36,000 mile new vehicle or bumper to bumper. They have a 5-year, 60,000 mile limited powertrain. Now, what you should know on a couple of these, one is why do they limit it to miles? Because a car and parts wear out based on mileage before they do on age. And you can see here that there is a difference between the 3 and the 5 in what's covered. This covers just about everything other than brakes and tires and mufflers and other things. This 5-year one is unlimited powertrain, but it takes into account normal wear and tear. So there may be a deductible. They then have a 5-year unlimited miles rust. They'll call it rust, corrosion, perforation. So those of us in upstate New York know it as rust. So that's what Honda does. Let's look at Hyundai. They have a 5-year, 60,000 mile new vehicle warranty and a 10-year, 100,000 mile limited powertrain. 7-year unlimited mile rust. So when we look at this and compare them, this comes back as to what our concern is about the vehicle. How long are we going to want to keep it? So if you look here, there's really a big difference. And if you expect to keep your car for 5 years, from a pure warranty perspective, not anything else, you would see that Hyundai is better. So you really need to take a look at this manufacturer's warranty, and as you can see right here, it is very different. Next thing we're going to look at is this concept of rebates. Okay, manufacturers oftentimes offer rebates or incentive to customers to move vehicles. It's all about moving the vehicles. They have specific dollar amounts. There's often other conditions. You need to be military, you need to be graduate rate, you need to own a previous car, and they all expire. There's a time that they expire. Sometimes it's a dollar amount, and sometimes it's in the form of interest rates. Okay, or you have a choice of either a dollar or an interest rate. So what we're going to do now is let's just take a look at a sample of what some of these incentives and rebates are now. find out what the rebates and incentives are. So I go to Edmonds, I go to new cars, incentive and rebates. I'm going to click under Chevy, and this is going to come up. And then I'm going to go down and find the Chevy Malibu. And I wanted 2013, so I click on it to see what is available. And a lot of different things here. So let's try just our LS. We were looking at this one right here. So let's see what is available, what offers they have. $2,000 offer. Okay. And I can't combine it with another offer of 0.00. Okay. And that's good for 2 months. And you got to finance through Ally Financial. Then they have another one that will give you $500, and that's if you lease or purchase to customers who currently lease a 99 or newer non-GM car. Okay, so if I happen to lease a Honda, well, then I could get an extra $500 off. Let's see what we got for financing. Well, I could also pick special financing. If I wanted to go 12 months, I could get a 0% APR. If I go up to 72 months, I could get 3.9. But even at 60%, 0. But they're telling me that I can't get that if I take the 2,000. So I'm going to have to make some decisions. So now, if I go back to the incentives and rebates, I see that on their hybrids, their eco, there's something called dealer available. Okay, so let's just take a look at what's available on this. So they're also giving me the dealer has another $1,000. So if I'm looking at one of these, I'm still going to get the 2,000. My 500 if I lease from somebody else, or I can take advantage of the 0 pricing. Nothing there. What's this? USAA bonus cash. Members of USAA must show proof of membership or obtain. So maybe if you're USAA, you get another $750. But here, there's another $1,000 in dealer cash. So all of a sudden, there's more. So it becomes important to understand your pricing, to understand these incentives and rebates. What we're going to do now is take a brief break, and then we're